The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.
And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm John DeShannon. Thank you for joining me tonight. As always, this newscast is real, in-depth American. Thank you so much for joining me. My co-host, David Heller, is off. Well, we've reached a point in the history of things and how, current events are, where I think it's less important that I bring to you, at least for right now, just the kind of general synopsis, the general summary of the news of the day, if you will, or the news of the week, perhaps a little more accurately at times. I think it's more important right now to really hone in at what's at stake here generally, the big picture. Because in this country, we have a spiritual battle on our hands. The fight of good versus evil. And by that, I mean, we really have a force of darkness trying to come up against America through the Democrat Party, through the deep state, even the mainstream media, particularly on the network level. And I think there are those who still don't really appreciate what's at stake here. They think that, the election is just annoying. I want the election to be over. Well, I'll tell you, I want the elections to be over too. Because it's I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm just going to be honest with you right now. There is no doubt in my mind that I have been experiencing a lot of anxiety because, the mainstream media likes to sow doubt and, all this stuff. And I think that people are really neglecting to understand what's at stake here, that we really could lose this country. And I believe that it will come down to whether the good people will stand up and be counted. I think that the odds are in our favor. I believe there's a lot more of us than there are of them. But once again, it comes down to whether the good people of this country will stand up and be counted. Go out and vote. And I think now, let me be very clear. I can't look into the future. I don't know what's going to go down here, but it looks to be, in my opinion, that Trump has it in his favor. He has, I believe, the upper hand. I believe that most of the American people are with him. Hopefully, most, if not all, and I would hope all of his supporters are voting for Trump, and preferably in person. If you'd rather vote by mail, at least consider taking it in person when you're returning instead of using the mail. I'm not saying this to attack the post office, but right now you just can't leave anything to chance with the ballots. You've got to use common sense and make sure your vote is actually counted. And I just want to say that people that want to say that Trump is, they try to say, Trump is not the real deal. Trump, remains to be seen whether Trump is just another one side of the same coin. I mean, how ridiculous. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to wake people like that up at this point. Maybe they're awake in other senses, but it seems to be that there are those that try to say, well, I can't really support Trump because this, and this, and this. Or I can't support Rudy Giuliani because this, and this, and this, and this. Let me tell you something. I want everyone listening to me to pay attention to what I'm fixing to say. And I say this with all due respect. There has never been one of us, every one of you watching this broadcast tonight, every one of you have just as much sin as the other. The only person that is perfect is Lord Jesus Christ, okay? Jesus is the only perfect person who walked on the face of the earth, of course, after Adam and Eve. But I'm saying, my point is that since the sin of Adam, only Jesus Christ has been perfect. That's walked on the face of the earth. Okay? And for those who are trying to throw stones at those who I believe, I'm not saying I know, but I believe God is using people like, obviously, President Trump, but I mean, besides Trump, Rudy Giuliani. I believe Rudy Giuliani is just one of those people. He's exposing the treason of the Bidens. And people that want to try to look back to Giuliani's past and try to say this, try to say that about him. I would just say, something? God's standard is perfect, and there's never been anyone other than Jesus Christ who's ever been 100% perfect, okay? Now, having said all that, it's important to understand you cannot sit this election out. You cannot vote third party, you cannot vote independent, and you cannot sit this election out because any of one of those choices is choosing to vote with the Democrats. Let me tell you something, particularly in South Carolina. You have a man, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. If I get the name wrong, just put it down in the comments section. But I believe his name is Bill Bledsoe, if I'm not mistaken. He's running as a conservative in South Carolina against Lindsey Graham. I believe, I can't read the guy's heart. I can't look into the guy's heart or read his mind. But I believe Bill Bledsoe, if that's his name, is strategically there to siphon off critical votes from Lindsey Graham. Let me tell you something. You cannot take anything by chance in South Carolina. You need to get out there and vote for Lindsey Graham. I don't care if you have a problem with him. I don't really care. Because frankly, nobody other than Jesus Christ has ever been perfect. And let me also say this. I truly believe that McCain had political control over Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham was liberated from that. When McStain checked out of here, let's just say. I'm not going to go into the specifics, but if you want to know what I really think might have happened to McStain, you just go pull up that video from John Kasich on CNN. I'm just going to leave it at that. But suffice it to say that you have the, I forget the Democrat's name, but obviously, if you're in South Carolina, you probably already know his name. The Democrat running against Lindsey Graham. It's not just him, though. You have Bill Bledsoe running for the Senate seat, U.S. Senate seat. Let me tell you something. You cannot nitpick right now. You need to vote straight Republican. I'm not just talking about South Carolina. I'm talking about here in North Carolina and everywhere else. You need to vote straight Republican right now. You cannot afford to nitpick right now. I am telling you that if you do that, you're going to be part of the reason that we lose a race. Okay? Lose whether it be the Senate race in South Carolina or here in North Carolina or, somewhere else. Okay? Or God forbid, even the presidency or some other, or state level seat, county level seat, city level seat, whatever, municipal, whatever. My point is that if you nitpick to the point that you can't bring yourself to vote Republican on somebody, and if you decide, something, I'm going to vote third party. I'm going to go vote in the Constitution Party candidate. I'm going to go vote for the Libertarian Party. Let me tell you something. You're going to be part of the reason why we lose some of these races if you're not careful. I'm going to say that again. These third party votes are part of the reason why a lot of these races go the wrong way. Because all they have to do is siphon off a couple of points here, a couple of points there, and then they got it. The Democrats got it. And I probably would bet you that, I'm not saying everybody, but I wouldn't doubt it for a bit, that some of these people, the third-party candidates and the Democrats behind closed doors, they're laughing their heads off because we fooled them this time. I do believe, though, that we're going to win. And I believe that a lot of crazy things are going to happen next week. I'm getting reports, and you need to go listen to the X22 report. I believe it was the Friday night broadcast, Friday, October 30, 2020. You can go to x22report.com for that. And he basically mentioned about how they were going to, there was basically a plot to do something in Washington, some kind of unrest. I forget off the top of my head if it was on Election Day. I want to say it was November 4th, so that would put it one day after. Having to do with the surrounding the White House. Let me tell you something. I'm going to say it right now in the name of Jesus Christ, that whatever evil scheme they have against President Trump, it is not going to work. You cannot lay a hand on God's anointed. Let me tell you something. All you people out there that like to nitpick President Trump, let me tell you something. I'm going to say it again. There has not been any one of you that's ever been perfect. Not one. And let me tell you something. If you try to go out there and say, I'm holier than thou, I haven't sinned, I haven't done this, I'm telling you something. God can and will raise a standard against that. The only man that has ever walked to the face of the earth who's always been perfect. Jesus is the only man who's ever been totally perfect. He's fully God, fully man. Okay? And I'm telling you, I believe the vast majority of the American people is with President Trump. We have to make sure he wins, though. You cannot take it, not one of you can take it for granted, though. You have to make sure, because let me tell you something, they're going to try to rig this. Here in North Carolina, they have now allowed absentee ballots to be received. I forget how many days exactly. I want to say 9 days after the election. I forget if that's exactly right. You can go look it up and see what it actually is. I want to say it's 9 days, but whatever it is, they are going to try to rig this. And I believe that we have to make sure that whatever voter fraud they're going to do, that the landslide is so substantial in Trump's favor that it's going to override any and all attempts with Democrat voter fraud. But I'm really concerned about these state level and Senate, even U.S. House seats. The governor here, Governor Cooper, is a Democrat. I just think, something? I hope that people are awake. I hope that they vote. You cannot vote third party. You can't do that. You just can't do it. I'm sorry. I know this is the party system we have right now, but it's what we got. We got to deal with it. If we want to nitpick about the party system, that's for another time. And if you have a problem with a Republican, if you don't think he or she is conservative enough or whatever, on politics, you should have dealt with that in the primary season. But this is what we got right now, and you need to vote like your life depends on it. I believe, though, that we're going to win, and I believe that we got this. But you make sure you vote. If you haven't voted already, you make sure you vote. And you get there, if you possibly can, get there well before the polls close on Election Day. If you can still go and do early voting, depending on where you live, then absolutely do that. Absolutely. If you've already requested an absentee ballot, at least take it in person and return it if you possibly can. If you're long distance and you're not able to make it back to where you currently live, that's understandable. Just make sure. What I would do if you have to go to the post office, what I would personally recommend is, particularly given how close the timing is on everything, I would consider going to if you're and this is going to sound a little arbitrary, even a little crazy, but there is logic behind this. If you're in a big city, if you can go to a suburb or even a small town, like a little post office, make sure it is a post office, obviously, but, and go to the counter. Don't just put it in the slot. You go inside during regular business hours, you go to the counter and you ask them, hey, will you hand to cancel this for me? Which is another way to say postmark this. They'll postmark it, and right then and there is a record of when it was postmarked. Make sure, of course, that the date is clearly legible. But suffice it to say, make sure you absolutely do everything you can to get your vote in for President Trump and all of the Republicans. Okay? Now, I have this open letter here. This was, now, the, shall we say, the Patriot Intelligence Insider posted this letter and as a post. And now I want to be very clear. I do not agree with Catholicism. I do not agree with what the Catholics believe. I believe and I know that the only way to heaven is through Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. Not through the rosary or through Mary or whatever else that they do. Okay? It is through Jesus Christ alone. But having said that, there is an individual by the name of Carlo Maria Vigano. And he penned this open letter to President Donald Trump, dated October 25th, Sunday, October 25, 2020. And I thought it was very, very good in explaining what's at stake here with the good versus evil. And I have to think, I have to think that this is one of those people that, even though, yes, he's in, I believe anyway, in part of the Catholic Church or whatever, that it's one of those people that God can work with. And maybe down the road, if, only God knows if this individual who wrote this letter is actually saved or not. Only God can say. But I'm saying if he's not saved, maybe he's one of those that God can work, can mold like a potter's clay, and save him, where he's not trusting in the Catholic Church system, but trusting in Jesus Christ alone. Let me just read to you this. Let me just read to you this letter, because I think it again is a very, very good explanation, if you will, on what's at stake here with good versus evil. Let me begin. Mr. President, allow me to address you at this hour in which the fate of the whole world is being threatened by a global conspiracy against God and humanity. I write to you as an archbishop, as a successor of the apostles, as the former apostolic nuncio to the United States of America. I am writing to you in the midst of the silence of both civil and religious authorities. May you accept these words of mine as the voice of one crying out in the desert. And he's referencing John 1:23. As I said when I wrote my letter to you in June, this historical moment sees the forces of evil aligned in a battle without quarter against the forces of good. Forces of evil that appear powerful and organized as they oppose the children of light, who are disoriented and disorganized, abandoned by their temporal and spiritual leaders. Daily we sense the attacks multiplying of those who want to destroy the very basis of society, the natural family, respect for human life, love of country, freedom of education and business. We see heads of nations and religious leaders pandering to this suicide of Western culture and its Christian soul, while the fundamental rights of citizens and believers are denied in the name of a health emergency that is revealing itself more and more fully as instrumental to the establishment of an inhuman, faceless tyranny. A global plan called the Great Reset is underway. Its architect is a global elite that wants to subdue all of humanity, imposing coercive measures with which to drastically limit individual freedoms and those of entire populations. In several nations, this plan has already been approved and financed. In others, it is still in an early stage. Behind the world leaders who are the accomplices and executors of this infernal project, There are unscrupulous characters who finance the World Economic Forum and Event 201, promoting their agenda. The purpose of the Great Reset is the imposition of a health dictatorship aiming at the imposition of liberticidal measures hidden behind tempting promises of ensuring a universal income and canceling individual debt. The price of these concessions from the International Monetary Fund will be the renunciation of private property and adherence to a program of vaccination against COVID-19 and COVID-21 promoted by Bill Gates with the collaboration of the main pharmaceutical groups. Beyond the enormous economic interests that motivate the promoters of the Great Reset, the imposition of the vaccination will be accompanied by the requirement of a health passport and a digital ID, with the consequent contact tracing of the population of the entire world. Those who do not accept these measures will be confined in detention camps or placed under house arrest, and all their assets will be confiscated. Mr. President, I imagine that you are already aware that in some countries the Great Reset will be activated between the end of this year and the first trimester of 2021. For this purpose, further lockdowns are planned, which will be officially justified by a supposed second and third wave of the pandemic. You are well aware of the means that have been deployed to sow panic and legitimize draconian limitations on individual liberties, artfully provoking a worldwide economic crisis. In the intentions of its architects, this crisis will serve to make the recourse of nations to the Great Reset irreversible, thereby giving the final blow to a world whose existence and very memory they want to completely cancel. But this world, President Trump, includes people, affections, institutions, faith, culture, traditions, and ideals. People and values that do not act like automatons who do not obey like machines, because they are endowed with a soul and a heart, because they are tied together by a spiritual bond that draws its strength from above, from that God that our adversaries want to challenge, just as Lucifer did at the beginning of time with his non serviam. Many people, as we well know, are annoyed by this reference to the clash between good and evil and the use of apocalyptic overtones, which, according to them, exasperates spirits and sharpens divisions. It is not surprising that the enemy is angered at being discovered just when he believes he has reached the citadel he seeks to conquer undisturbed. What is surprising, however, is that there is no one to sound the alarm. The reaction of the deep state to those who denounce its plan is broken and incoherent, but understandable. Just when the complicity of the mainstream media had succeeded in making the transition to the New World Order almost painless and unnoticed, all sorts of deceptions, scandals, and crimes are coming to light. Until a few months ago, it was easy to smear as conspiracy theorists those who denounced these terrible plans, which we now see being carried out down to the smallest detail. No one, up until last February, would ever have thought in all of our cities, citizens would be arrested simply for wanting to walk down the street, to breathe, to want to keep their business open, to want to go to church on Sunday. Yet now it is happening all over the world. Even in picture postcard Italy, that many Americans consider to be a small enchanted country with its ancient monuments, its churches, its charming cities, its characteristic villages. And while the politicians are barricaded inside their palaces promulgating decrees like Persian satraps, businesses are failing, shops are closing, and people are prevented from living, traveling, working, and praying. The disastrous psychological consequences of this operation are already being seen, beginning with suicides of desperate entrepreneurs and of our children, segregated from friends and classmates, told to follow their classes while sitting at home alone in front of a computer. In sacred scripture, St. Paul speaks to us of the one who opposes the manifestation of the mystery of iniquity, the kathekon, and is referencing 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 6 and 7. In the religious sphere, this obstacle to evil is the church, in particular the papacy. In the political sphere, it is those who impede the establishment of the New World Order. As is now clear, the one who occupies the chair of Peter has betrayed his role from the very beginning in order to defend and promote the globalist ideology, supporting the agenda of the deep church, who choose him from its ranks. Mr. President, you have clearly stated that you want to defend the nation, one nation under God, fundamental liberties, and non-negotiable values that are denied and fought against today. It is you, dear President, who are the one who opposes the deep state, the final assault of the children of darkness. For this reason, it is necessary that all people of good who will be persuaded by the epical importance of the imminent election, not so much for the sake of this or that political program, but because of the general inspiration of your action that best embodies in this particular historical context that world, our world, which they want to cancel by means of the lockdown. Your adversary is also our adversary. It is the enemy of the human race, he who is a murderer from the beginning. And it's referencing John 8:44. Around you are gathered with faith and courage those who consider you the final garrison against the world dictatorship. The alternative is to vote for a person who is manipulated by the deep state, gravely compromised by scandals and corruption, who will do to the United States what Jorge or George Mario, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Jorge Mario Bergoglio is doing to the church, and he's referencing the Catholic Church. Prime Minister Conte to Italy, President Macron to France, Prime Minister Sanchez to Spain, and so on. The blackmailable nature of Joe Biden, just like that of the prelates of the Vatican's magic circle, will expose him to be used unscrupulously, allowing illegitimate powers to interfere in both domestic politics as well as international balances. It is obvious that those who manipulated him already have someone worse than him ready, with whom they will replace him as soon as the opportunity arises. And yet, in the midst of this bleak picture, this apparently unstoppable advance of the invisible enemy, an element of hope emerges. The adversary does not know how to love, and it does not understand that it is not enough to assure a universal income or to cancel mortgages in order to subjugate the masses and convince them to be branded like cattle. This people, which for too long has endured the abuses of a hateful and tyrannical government, is rediscovering that it has a soul. It is understanding that it is not willing to exchange its freedom for the homogenization and cancellation of its identity. It is beginning to understand the value of familial. It's a variant on the word family. I don't know how to pronounce. I can't quite pronounce it. It seems, and social ties of the bonds of faith and culture that unite honest people. This great reset is destined to fail because those who planned it do not understand that there are still people ready to take to the streets to defend their rights, to protect their loved ones, to give a future to their children and grandchildren. The leveling inhumanity of the globalist project will shatter miserably in the face of the firm and courageous opposition of the children of light. The enemy has Satan on its side, he who only knows how to hate. But on our side we have the Lord Almighty, the God of armies arrayed for battle, in the most holy Virgin, who will crush the head of the ancient serpent. If God is for us, who can be against us? Mr. President, you are well aware that in this crucial hour, the United States of America is considered the defending wall against which the war declared by the advocates of globalism has been unleashed. Place your trust in the Lord, strengthened by the words of the Apostle Paul. I can do all things in him who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. To be an instrument of divine providence is a great responsibility, for which you will certainly receive all the graces of state that you need, since they are being fervently implored for you by the many people who support you with their prayers. With this heavenly hope and the assurance of my prayer for you, for the First Lady, and for your collaborators, with all my heart, I send you my blessing. God bless the United States of America. Carlo Maria Vigano, titular, or TIT. That's the abbreviation of it. Archbishop of Alpiena, former apostolic nuncio to the United States of America. So that was that letter from that individual. And again, I don't agree with the Catholic Church, but suffice it to say, obviously God can use people like this to get messages to the president, as we see here. And now only God knows if this individual is saved or not, and if he's not, maybe God can work with him to bring him to a point of asking Jesus in his heart, to trust Jesus. But let me just say this, that the forces of good and evil are so real, and I don't think that it can be understated how critical this election is. Now, I will let you know that I plan to tape a broadcast of the Citizen Report with my co-host David Heller soon. He has been without power for a number of days. My understanding is that he got it restored last night. So we will be working to get a production underway of that in the coming day or so, maybe. But I just want to thank you for watching the Citizen Report, and please make sure you go out and vote for President Trump. We'll be here on the Citizen Report. I'll be here to cover any major things I need to cover, and there will most definitely be episodes before the election. So on that note, thank you for watching the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon. God bless each and every one of you. And don't forget our website as well, thecitizenreport.weebly.com. And just a reminder that God is always, and I'm just going to say this on the record with all sincerity, that God is always faithful. I believe that God will see us to the other side. This is a very, very dark moment in this country's history, because we are seeing what could happen if an individual like Joe Biden becomes president. And obviously we all know that it's really Kamala that they're trying to put in, but she's not even qualified to be president. So if that gets me removed from YouTube, just remember our website, and don't forget to get on our text alerts. So God bless each and every one of you, and I will see you right back here again next time.